Before starting with the difference between eukaryotic cell, prokaryotic cell, and before going into much detail, let's have a look at the cell theory. Generally, a person contains about 100 trillion cells, organized in about 200 different type of cells. As we can see here, the adult human body is composed of trillions of cells, which are generally differentiated in organs, but also inside the organs there is a different cell type. This is basically a map of cell within the human body. Generally, the cell theory is a cornerstone of biology. The cell theory states that biological organisms are composed of cells, and cells are the unit of life, and all life come from pre-existing life. Okay, so also the cell theory is one of the unifying principle of biology. Again, so the cell are the unit of life, and all organisms living today are a descendant of an ancestral cell, means an old cell. You can also find more information via using this link and also having a look of this map when we can easily see the different type of cells that are present in our body, which once together they form a different kind of organs. Before starting with the difference between eukaryotic cell, prokaryotic cell, and before going into much detail, let's have a look at the cell theory. Generally, a person contains about 100 trillion cells, organized in about 200 different type of cells. As we can see here, the adult human body is composed of trillions of cells, which are generally differentiated in organs, but also inside the organs there is a different cell type. This is basically a map of cell within the human body. Generally, the cell theory is a cornerstone of biology. The cell theory states that biological organisms are composed of cells, and cells are the unit of life, and all life come from pre-existing life. Okay, so also the cell theory is one of the unifying principle of biology. Again, so the cell are the unit of life, and all organisms living today are a descendant of an ancestral cell, means an old cell. You can also find more information via using this link and also having a look of this map when we can easily see the different type of cells that are present in our body, which once together they form a different kind of organs. Also, the cell theory, as a cell grow, its volume increase much more rapidly than its surface area. However, since the surface of cell is what allows the entry of oxygen, large cell cannot get as much oxygen as they would need to support themselves. Here in the figure we can see what does it mean to have a 1 centimeter cell, what does it mean to have a 2 centimeter cell, or what does it mean to have a 3 centimeter cell. Basically, we can see that there is always an increase of the surface, there is always an increase of the volume, but actually there is this ratio that the surface divided the volume is even lower. Okay, and this is just a general scheme in order to understand how the cells basically grows. Here in the second picture, we can have a look, for example, how a leaf of plant look like. Here we can have the whole structure, but here are all the cells that are composing this kind of plant under the microscope. And here again, the concept is the same, but in an animal is a snake. So, and all living organisms are made up of cells. The cells are basic unit of life. What can I see here? For example, is a cell that is attached to another cell, which is also attached to another cell, which is also attached to another cells. And all the cells arise from pre-existing cells. And we can have a look in this part for when we will discuss about DNA and hereditary information is passed also from cell to cell. Okay, so from this slide, just have a look how, for example, a plant look like, how the vegetal cell look like, and also how an animal cell look like. The concept is the same. More cell together can form an organism, vegetal organism or animal organisms. And now, just again, another example about the cell theory. We can see a leaf seen under the microscope. The leaf is composed of millions of plant cells, as we can see here, for example, in green. Just remember the color is green because inside the vegetal cell there is the presence of so-called chlorophyll, is a pigment. And here, for example, the human skin seen under the microscope. The skin basically is composed of millions of animal cells. But basically, as you can see, the structure is more or less the same. We have one cell close to another cell, close to another cell, close to another cell. Okay? Presence of many different cells which they form an organ. And the same here. So presence of cell close to another cell, close to another cell, close to another cell. What about the cell size? Most cells, both animal and plant, range in size between 1 and 100 micrometers, and they're just visible only via the aid of a microscope, so only via using a microscope. What can we see here is a very important graph which show you which kind of microscope do we need in order to serve a determined kind of cell, and also the size relative on a logarithmic scale of all the chemical but also living matter. For example, we can start from the atom, that is the smaller part of the matter, is about 0.1 nanometer. After that, we can find this kind of so-called biomolecules, such as lipid or protein. They can be found in a range from 1 nanometer to 10 nanometer. And after that, we can already start with a first living organism that is a virus, like for example, in this case, the flu virus, which is a range of around 100 nanometer. After that, we can find some organelles. So there are particular structures that can be found inside the cell, basically. Also, like for example, the mitochondria is an organelle that can be found inside the animal cell, or even the bacteria. They have the same size, is around 100 micrometer. The relative size on a logarithmic scale increase when we talk about animal cell or plant cell. We can see that the size is more or less the same, even though can be different. For example, if we speak about the human eggs, on the frog eggs, that is about 1 nanometer. However, more cells together can form an organ, more or can form a tissue, more tissue together can form an organ, and we can have, for example, an egg or a chicken eggs or ostrich egg. There are bigger, and here, like 1 meter, is the adult female. Okay, this scheme is very important because we can easily identify what can we see just via, for example, using our eye, the naked eye, or for example, what we can see using a light microscope. That is a particular kind of microscope, or what can we see using an electronic microscope. Okay, as we can see, there are many kind of structure biomolecules that can only be appreciated by using the electronic microscope. There are also some kind of cells on bacteria that can be seen via using the light microscope, and there are however also living organisms or living cell like the human eggs or the frog eggs that can be seen just using naked eye. As I told you, so at 0.1 to 5 micrometer in diameter, prokaryotic cells are smaller than eukaryotic cell. It is very important because generally in cell biology, all the differences between living organisms are based in the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic, which have a diameter ranging from 10 to 100 micrometer. The small size of prokaryotics allow ions and organic molecules that enter them to quickly diffuse to other parts of cells. And again, you can find also more information using this link, this biolibrary text.